What nonsense did you believe for way too long before you found out it was made up? My parents told me that the little ear receptor, little glass bubble, on the living room TV was a tiny camera and that it would record me and my sister when they weren't home and they would watch the tape to make sure we didn't lie to them about what we did. This was a throwaway line my mom said once to get my sister to confess to something they knew she did. She was 5 and I was 7, and I believed that shit until I was 18. I knew how televisions worked and I knew how remote controls worked, but for some reason I never put 2 and 2 together until I was getting ready to move out for college and I asked my parents, "Hey, where did you get that old TV that had a camera in it? Can I have that for my dorm to make sure my roommate doesn't mess with my stuff?" I'm still feeling the residual embarrassment of that a decade and a half later. That my dad was sleeping on the sofa because of his bad back frown. I had the opposite realization with my dad. He started sleeping on the sofa when we were young and I thought it was because my parents were fighting. Turns out he really did just hate the bed they'd newly purchased because it was too soft and hurt his back. My parents just got a new firmer bed and he's been sleeping in it with my mom since. Weird. It's because now you're out of the house and your parents can play night crawlers again. Oh, they didn't wait till I was out of the house. Barf. Oh, get a load of this guy. With his parents that have a good relationship. Up until I was 18 I thought that when a man had a vasectomy that his testicles were removed completely. And I always thought to myself there must be a better way. Do you know what kind of toll 3 vasectomies has on a person? Snip snap snip snap. That is a $200 plasma screen TV you just killed. Good luck paying me back on your $0 a year salary plus benefits, babe. That one night you made everything all right. You made me a man. You took me by the high end. It's purely carnal. I, born 1982, believe that my Game Boy needs to rest after playing on it, since it gets tired just like a person. Clever parenting, in hindsight smile. That's kind of adorable smile. So when I was little, probably 3 or 4, I was eating grapes one day and my grandmother told me very seriously that if I eat too many grapes, they go down and end up in my ballsack. Later that day while taking bath I remember I felt my ballsack and crying out loud as I assumed it was the grapes I ate. Yeah. It took a while for my mom to convince me that they were already there. That's ducked up, Grandma. When I was a kid, my mom had this old car with a turn knob dial for the radio. She told me it only got oldies radio stations because it was so old. When they gave that car to my brother he immediately ripped the radio out and put in a new sound system. I always assumed he just wanted the new radio stations. Then I was in college riding in a friend's old beater car and we were listening to a top 40 type radio station and I was like, holy shit, how is your car able to get modern radio stations? Oh my lord, I love this. As though the radio signals from the past are still hanging up there in the sky and your car's tech determines which temporal echoes you can snag, as if with a butterfly net. Maga. I thought oral sex was people talking about sex. It didn't help that the definition I read said something about using a mouth and tongue to induce sexual pleasure. I couldn't imagine any other use for the mouth than talking. Me too. I was like 10 when the Clinton-Lewinsky business went down. I heard that it was only oral sex, and I thought, so what? They has some sexy conversations? What's the big deal? My daughter was 10 and asked me what a blowjob was. I still cringe thinking about that conversation. It's when you blow up a balloon and then let your boyfriend pop it. That's why mommy and daddy buy those special balloons from the grocery store. My older cousin told me that U-Haul trucks were always full of whatever the picture on the side of the truck was. This made sense to me. Coke trucks were full of Coke, Walmart trucks were full of Walmart stuff, so why wouldn't the truck with a submarine on the side be full of submarines? I was 8 or 9 when I asked my mom how they got dinosaurs into a truck if they were all extinct. I think she actually took my temperature after that question. Haha, Walmart stuff. Yeah, you know, the trucks are full of the crushed dreams of small business owners. One person told me that if I ever eat oysters I would have to chew on them otherwise they would stay alive and grab my esophagus. Another person told me that if I did, it would release gastric liquid into my mouth and dissolve my tongue. I don't eat oysters. My GF and I were eating dinner with some friends, when the topic of eating live things came up. My GF stated that she'd never eat an animal that was still alive. Not thinking, I said, except oysters, as raw oysters are one of her favorite foods. She literally stopped with a fork full of food halfway to her mouth, started to tear up, and just said, "What?" Feel real bad for breaking that illusion. Edit. Apparently, my purpose in life is to destroy people's innocence in regards to oysters. For anyone freaking out, as has been pointed out, oysters don't have a central nervous system, and are unlikely to feel pain the way we understand it. They are almost always cultivated, generally have a positive impact on water quality, have little, if any bycatch of other animals during harvesting. They also do not have a central brain, and are generally thought to have no sense of consciousness or higher awareness. As for why she was upset, I would guess for the same reason a lot of people in the comments are, now that they know. Most of us know where meat comes from, and may have even helped in butchering an animal after it has been killed, but there is something a little harder for people to actually be the one to end the life of an animal, especially when taking that life means sucking it out of its shell and chewing it, even if it probably feels nothing and has no concept of what is happening. This reminds me of a time when I was hanging out with a friend when we were in our teens. We were sitting on her kitchen counter eating marshmallows and she was complaining about how her dad didn't support her vegetarian diet. She started to explain that she was trying to go vegan. I held up one of the marshmallows and jokingly piped in, "Too bad you'll have to give these up." She had the same shocked, "What?" reaction as your girlfriend. I then awkwardly explained to her where gelatin comes from while she cried. I thought President Andrew Jackson was black because his last name was Jackson and everyone with the same last name must be related, so surely he was black because the Jackson 5 were all black. I learned differently in about 4th grade when the teacher couldn't stop laughing when I explained why the picture of Andrew Jackson was wrong in our book. Edit. Thank you, kind stranger, for the gold. I mean, I hope you can see the humor in that now, because that is hilarious. Yes, definitely, and I just realized that I also believed for the longest time that if someone had the same last name they had to be related in some way, so someone named Smith or Johnson or Jones had very prolific ancestors. I used to think that doctors and nurses were just gender variants of the same job. I guess it's not. Doctor for male, doctress for female, right? Doctor Doctrix. Doctrix sexual healing starts to play. Every extra time you press the button at the lights to cross the road, it resets a timer and you have to wait longer to cross. My dad told my sister that the bumps in the road, lane dividers, are road braille for blind people who drive. She believed well into adulthood. My dad used to tell me that the concrete barriers dividing roads were dinosaur stoppers. When my brothers or I disagreed, he always stated, "Well, you don't see any dinosaurs, do you?" I aspire to be this dad. When characters in movies and TV shows were killed, they actually used prisoners on death row and actually killed them. Edit. All these responses have been fun to read. Glad to know I'm not the only retard, although one guy says I'm stupid. Frown. Also, there are a shitton of folks from Ohio on this thread. And, I get it. Romans did this too. Maybe the Greeks as well. That speed bumps were actually the resting place of the deceased, and basically they'd lay some bodies down, pave over them, and you had a speed bump. I was a naive kid, and my uncle was his jerk. Actually, in Puerto Rico we call the speed bumps muertos, dead people. De la speed bump. Bonsai cats. I found a website when I was in college that advertised cats put into glass jars and left there to grow into the shape of the jar, with a hole for waste and a hole for their mouths in the special jars. I was horrified and showed some friends who were also horrified. Months later a friend of mine was like, "Wow, you really got us with that website, sappy." Ha ha ha, I thought it was real. Oh, yeah, ha ha, of course it is not real and I was enacting fun japery, said I. Ha 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 ha. Ha. I'm an idiot. Edit. I feel so gratified that so many others were taken in by the bonsai cats. Hello, fellow gullibles.